Howdy my totally tubular gamers, and we're back with another ranking video. Now every year, every January, I like to do at least one edgy ranking video, and this year's we're going to be looking at HoneyPop. Now it's not edgy in the traditional sense, it's edgy in a different sense, and I'll leave it at that. Now before we begin, I would like to state that these games do not reflect my personal views, and this is merely a critique of the series. Now, HoneyPop, well, if you're clicking on this video, HoneyPop probably doesn't need an introduction, but I'll just say it's a tile-matching dating simulator adult game where you follow your main character through dating adventures trying to woo several different women in their hometown. Basically, you're a total loser and you can't get any girls to save your life, and this fairy shows up and basically makes it so all the girls will be at least somewhat attracted to you. While you're on dates, you need to do this tile matching game that is very similar to Bejeweled if you've ever played it, and along the way there's lots of dating simulator elements such as getting the girls gifts, knowing their interests, what they dislike, etc. The game came out in 2015 after a successful Kickstarter, and I'll just say it definitely kicked up some notoriety, and it definitely has gone on to be a cult hit over the years. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that it kind of created this whole subgenre of adult games where it has very similar gameplay to Bejeweled. People obviously like this game for the deep, thoughtful, engaging gameplay and excellent storytelling with some superb writing and not at all anything raunchy or explicit. The game was so successful that it would actually get a direct sequel, HoneyPop 2 Double Date, and a spin-off known as Honeycam Studios. Now, I've played all of these games, and so today I thought I would rank the three from worst to best and just kind of give my thoughts on them. I would much rather look at these high-class games than some of the low-tier garbage that Steam now has. And so with that in mind, we're going to be ranking these games based off their gameplay, their characters, writing, etc., all that stuff, and just generally how I feel about it. Let me know down below your favorite character, moment, or game. I'd love to hear it. And so let's get into it. What do I think is the weakest of the three Honey games? It probably isn't really a surprise, but here we have Honeycam Studios. Now, Honeycam Studios is not a bad game. I actually think it's a pretty decent game, but it is very different from the HoneyPop gameplay, and I don't think it's as rewarding or a fulfilling experience as the main HoneyPop games. But again, this is a fine little spin-off. Additionally, the game does have this warning on the Steam page. I'll just show you here. And so it's something to keep in mind, and I'm sure it's the reason why a number of people don't appreciate this game. But what you have here is a more than fine enough little business management game. The game isn't too long. Each session runs about an hour and a half or so, and your goal is to just make as much money and get as many fans as possible. To do this, you get women to join your company, and then when they're in your company, you can send them off to do a number of things, such as taking fancy photos, sending them to a discreet hotel, or even menial tasks such as sending them shopping. It all comes together to make for a pretty decent little business simulator here where you're constantly trying to make enough money so that you stay afloat so that you can pay your workers and give them respectable health benefits. You also do have to deal with some personal issues that your workers may have, such as some of them might be addicted to cigarettes or alcohol, but as is life, we all deal with our demons. I'm not going to judge, but this is something to take into account, and a lot of it comes down to how you're spending your time. You have 30 in-game days or around that to try to, again, make as much money as possible. You start with only one worker, but slowly you get a small union and you're able to send off numerous employees on your business ventures. The gameplay can get surprisingly hectic as you're trying to manage multiple employees and what they're doing at a time, and it can get pretty micromanagey if you're not careful. You want to be a good employer though. You don't want to be a micromanaging boss. That ain't fun. Well, it might be in this case. At the end of every session, once you've hit the maximum amount of days, you'll be graded on your performance and you'll get some awards. This game is meant to be replayed numerous times as there's tons of different options while you're playing the game. If you only play through this game once and call it a day, you're really not getting your money's worth. You're really not getting the best experience. You're going to be missing out. See, a lot of this game comes down to its replayability, and if you think the gameplay loop is enjoyable. I actually did think it was decently enjoyable. I thought there was enough factors to keep me engaged, and the characters are quirky enough that I wanted to see what would happen. This game has all the characters, or almost all the characters from HoneyPop 1, all of them from 2, and then some original ones as well, so it was cool to see all the characters. And it was fun seeing all the wacky situations you can get your employees in as you send them out on your business ventures. And I can say that unless you try really hard, no two playthroughs are going to be the same, so it adds to the replayability. Now, am I going to say that this gameplay is particularly deep? No, I'm not. It does have its moments, but for the most part it is relatively simple, and it can certainly get a bit shallow by the end of it at times. It's nowhere near as deep as, say, Roller Coaster Tycoon, Planet Coaster, Planet Zoo, Jurassic World Evolution, Game Dev Tycoon, or really like any management game, but this is a fun little management game you play for like an hour, hour and a half. And you want to see what happens to the HoneyPop character, so I mean, you just check it out. And with that in mind, I think the game, for its very cheap price point, might actually be worth it. If you really have any small interest in this kind of game, or this game in general, or the characters, I think it's worth checking out. I think I got this game for maybe $1, $2 at most, and with that, I can't beat that. I can't really complain too much. But if you're looking for a traditional HoneyPop experience, then you're going to have to look elsewhere, as this game does not provide that. But what it does provide is a fun few hours. And so here we have the original HoneyPop releasing in 2015. Now, when this game came out, I remember there were people talking about it pretty much immediately. Like, what kind of game is this? What kind of deep, involved gameplay does it have? How does it really evolve the puzzle gameplay of Bejeweled and Candy Crush? And since this game's release, we've had plenty of HoneyPop imitators. We've had plenty of people trying to copy the game's success to little effect, in my opinion. None of them really quite do it like HoneyPop. And so, like I mentioned earlier, you play as pretty much just, well, a loser, I'll say, who could not get with any kind of person to save their life. In fact, you are such a loser that this fairy shows up and basically gives you the power to make you attractive to these women that are in your local town. That is like basically your power, and so now you can actually try to date some of these women. The premise starts pretty simple. It doesn't seem all that deep. It might even seem a bit contrived even, but as you play through it, you really realize that this is an engaging, expertly told, heartstring pulling story. And it really tackles some of society's biggest issues with truly some expertly written, handcrafted dialogue that is just some of the best writing you will find in any video game. The game oozes charm and personality, and I gotta say I was thoroughly engaged by it the entire time. I did not want to put the game down. I wanted to see what would happen next. I was just really dying and hanging on the edge of my seat here with the game's story. Games like The Last of Us and God of War Ragnarok really are put on notice by HoneyPop's story. But enough about the story, let's talk about the riveting gameplay. So the game is half dating sim and half puzzle game. So when you're on one of these dates, it's a pretty basic tile matching game where all you have to do is just get so many of the same tiles together and then they disappear and new ones drop down. It's pretty simple. There's a number of different factors that come into this to make it a bit more unique and have a bit more complex situations than, say, Candy Crush. But still, it's not the most complex type of tile matching or puzzle game. I would say even Tetris is probably more complex than this, but it's one of those simple to understand, hard to master kind of gameplay loops that I think you can really excel at, or you can just be complete shite like I am. See, I was just so distracted by the game's amazing, enthralling story that I just was never very good at the tile matching, but despite not being all that great, I was still able to work my way through it. The game isn't terribly challenging, but it's actually decently rewarding. The game also does reward you for doing a good job and finishing in less moves. The game has some great risk versus reward gameplay, and it really does bring the best out of everybody. And all of this with no microtransactions, no DLC, no battle pass, no season pass, none of this, just a good old-fashioned match gameplay loop that is actually pretty addicting. No timers, no dailies, none of that. It's just some simple gameplay, and it becomes very hard to master. Now, when you're not doing the puzzle gameplay, you're doing the dating simulator aspects where you gotta remember the interests of the girls, you gotta get them gifts, you gotta make sure that they like you. And to be honest, playing this game as long as I have, I think I know these characters better than my friends, family members, co-workers, even my girlfriend. I know these characters better. I know everything about them at this point because they have just such excellent writing and really bang up personalities. I will leave it at that. When you do enough successful dates with these women, they might invite you out to a date night, which is a lot more fun. But I don't want to spoil the few people who may not have played this game. I think that this game is great for people who are looking for an engaging puzzle game, a great story, some quirky writing, and can put up with some of the game's more crass themes. The game does tackle a lot of sensitive issues in our society that really I wish more games would even talk about. It's this game though that reminds me why I really love video games. There's so many interesting things you could do with the medium, and this game really just kind of takes the ball and runs with it. But I don't think it's the best of the HuniePop series. No, I think the series' magnum opus and probably one of the greatest games ever made is HoneyPop 2 Double Date, releasing in 2021. This game really looked at the original formula and said, how do we just make this better? How do we improve this? And by God, they did it. They made the original HoneyPop look not obsolete, but definitely significantly downgraded compared to this game. Now, it's important to keep in mind that original game was a pretty small indie Kickstarter, and it was made by just a couple people. This game certainly has a much bigger budget, better production values, and it just is a hell of a lot better. It's got a lot more advanced gameplay. Not only does it look better, but it's got a lot more going on to create just a superb experience. Now, HoneyPop 2 is the direct sequel to the first game, so spoilers here, I'm sorry, but after the ending of the first game, you finally did get with some women, and this game sees you going to a tropical island to go woo more girls because it turns out that there is 2 cosmic creatures that will be awoken from their slumber and will basically destroy the earth. But you can actually awaken them before this happens and try to please them. But the only way you can do this is you need to get fairy wings, which can only be earned by having 3 people together for 3 people together, and you'll make the volcano erupt, and you'll basically be able to summon these cosmic creatures and save the earth. It is a very serious tale with not only the highest of stakes, but there is a lot of emotional drama that goes on in this game. There's a lot of character development, and you really go from that original loser to the savior of the planet. And not only does your character evolve, but a lot of these characters evolve as well. Like, you thought the first game had good writing and a good story and a really great premise and was incredibly deep. This game takes it to a whole nother level with just everything going on. And you know, that's all I'm gonna say. I don't want to spoil it because it's just so good, and the writing is just truly fantastic. And the game somehow covers even more issues that are prevalent in society nowadays than the first game. Like, I don't know how that was possible, but it really does look at everything from such a humanitarian, expertly written perspective. Like, wow.
Ina de Puna, where the melons are juicy and the fish are aplenty.
Additionally, the game's presentation is significantly better. The original game, it looked kind of cheap at times, and it looked very indie. This game looks, again, much better. There's a lot more life with the characters. They look a lot better. There's a lot more animation here. It just is significantly better than anything the first game had. The same goes for the music. The original game had some alright tunes, but this game, the soundtrack's actually pretty solid. Like, for real, it's actually pretty good. I also think that the characters are quite a bit stronger in this game. Their personalities, I think, come out more. The original game had plenty of good characters, but this game, I really think it has the better characters versus that original game. A number of characters actually come back, and the ones that do come back, I think they actually are improved by quite a bit. But the new characters, aside from some of the more annoying ones, I think they're all actually pretty good. Really, it's just like one character, I think, that's pretty annoying. But the rest of them, I think, are all pretty solid, and I think that they all have good personalities. Now, when it comes to the actual gameplay, it's pretty much the same as the first game. It's still that bejeweled gameplay. It's got a bit more involvement now, though. There's some new strings you can have, some new power-ups that are involved. The big thing is that you're really switching between the 2 girls and making sure that both of them stay happy, and you're able to, you know, intrigue them and get them excited enough by making matches and doing all that puzzle gameplay. But you will have to switch between the girls pretty frequently, as they do get tired, and you also want to make sure that you're not giving one too much attention, as that is also important. Really, it's a bit of a balancing act, and it can actually get pretty stressful at times. See games like Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Bloodborne, Sekiro. It has, you know, some pretty off-the-walls, crazy, high-stress level gameplay, but I don't think any of them compare to HoneyPop 2 when you're trying to manage 2 girls on a date. Like that, it gets really tense, and you definitely are going to be sweating. But it's thanks to this engaging gameplay that I think the game has much better gameplay, and it's a lot more rewarding than the first games. I think it is still pretty similar, and it still is a bit basic at times, but it's thanks to that simplicity that it really allows you to just kind of come in, play for fun, but then really master the gameplay, and I think it really does. It really pays off. And then when it comes to the dating sim stuff, I think it's pretty much the same. It's a little bit more involved than the first game. There's more gifts to give, there's more items you can equip them with, and it's all about making them, you want them to like you, so naturally you're going to have to play their games. Now, if you have enough successful double dates, you can all get together and have yourselves a grand old time, and that allows you to get the fairy wings and eventually face the creature. The final boss, I will say, unfortunately, is one of the weak points in my opinion. I was not a big fan of the final boss, but you know what, maybe that's just a little bit of a nitpick. I gotta say, this is probably one of the greatest games ever created, and I think it would be more than a solid enough experience for everyone. Now, a ton of people talk about the greatest games ever made, Ocarina of Time, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, Mario 64. I think HoneyPop 2 should probably be in the conversation with them. I don't see why it wouldn't be. It just does everything right. It's probably the greatest puzzle game ever made. I mean, Tetris is old school. Nobody plays Tetris. See, HoneyPop 2, though, I think it really does set the bar. I think this is what every puzzle game should really strive. Really, just every game should try to be as good as HoneyPop 2 is. And I have no problem saying that it is totally worth playing. Don't play around children for obvious reasons, but I think if you were going to play a game in 2023, I think you should totally be playing this, because it's just one of the most rewarding, fulfilling experiences you could find in all of video games. And with that in mind, I'm going to leave everybody. I hope everyone has a great day. Hope everyone has a great night, Christmas, whatever it is near you. Let me know your favorite character. If you made it to this part of the video, comment bricks, as in what you used to build a house. Then I will know you are a real one. It probably deserves to be said, I don't agree with a lot of what these games are about or what they say. It does not reflect my personal views at all, actually, and this was mostly done as a joke. And anything said in this video should not be taken seriously. But, if you made it to this part of the video, you'd already know that. So, see y'all later. Bye-bye.